Khamzat loses the belt, and 4 days later he's already back on the road. Francis Ngannou finally explains what really broke his relationship with the UFC. Ronda Rousey unloads on Khamzat in front of the media. And Ciryl Gane just gave an answer about eye pokes that is going to annoy a lot of people before the Alex Pereira fight. So if you thought things were calming down after UFC 328, not even close. Welcome back to the rear naked choke. No fluff, no filler, just straight to the point MMA news. And if you're already here, hit the like button and subscribe so more fight fans can find the channel. Let's start with Ciryl Gane, because ahead of his fight with Alex Pereira at the White House card, he was asked about the eye poke issue and whether he's made any effort to change the way he fights. And his answer was pretty blunt. No. He basically said these things happen all the time in MMA, they happen on every event, and it's not something unusual. His explanation was that when he throws that middle kick, his hands come forward too, and sometimes when someone rushes into range, the first thing his hand meets is the opponent's face. Now obviously that's not going to calm down the people who are already frustrated with eye pokes in the sport, because for a lot of fans, that's exactly the problem. Too many fighters act like it's just one of those things instead of something they need to actively clean up. So whether people agree with Gane or not, that quote is definitely going to get attention, especially with a massive fight coming up against Pereira. Now, speaking of massive fighters, Michael Morales just revealed that he currently walks around at 220 pounds. 220. That's wild when you remember he's a welterweight. And the comparison people immediately made is even crazier. Islam Makhachev, the current welterweight champ, reportedly walks around closer to 190. So you're talking about roughly a 30-pound difference between two guys technically sitting in the same division picture. That's insane. It also tells you why some of these welterweights look like monsters once they're in the cage. Morales is basically carrying around light heavyweight size before the cut. Now let's move over to Francis Ngannou, because he gave a really honest explanation for what actually broke things with the UFC. And according to Francis, it wasn't money, it was ego. He said the mistake the UFC made was getting to the point where he felt disrespected. Once they touched his ego the wrong way, that was the moment he knew he wanted out of the contract. And what made it more interesting is how direct he was after that. He said he didn't care if leaving meant the end of his career. He didn't care if he had to go back to Africa and farm. In his mind, he'd still figure life out, because his success wasn't just about fighting, it was about who he is as a person. That's a big statement, and honestly, it gives you a better understanding of why the whole situation ended the way it did. Because from Francis's point of view, once he felt like they were trying to pressure him and force him, the relationship was basically already broken. Now over to Strickland, who posted a message to his fans after winning at UFC 328, and it was actually one of the more grounded things you'll hear from a fighter after a title win. Sean basically said, look, he doesn't have a normal job. He's not laying concrete. He's not fixing cars. He just hits people for a living. And everything he has, his life, his bike, all of it, is because fans watch him fight. That's actually why Sean connects with so many people. Because even when he says wild stuff, there are moments where he sounds like a very regular guy who still can't quite believe this is his life. And Brendan Schaub touched on that too. He said Strickland is relatable to a lot of MMA fans because he feels like an ordinary dude who somehow made it all the way to the top anyway. Schaub's bigger point was that Sean didn't come from some perfect system or elite pedigree. He shouldn't be here, and yet he is. And not only is he here, he beat Adesanya striking and then worked his way back through a brutal set of opponents to get the belt again. That's why people keep backing him. Now let's talk about Khamzat, because while people are still debating what his loss means, he's already back working. Just 4 days after losing to Strickland, footage surfaced of Khamzat out doing road work at night as he gets ready for that upcoming grappling match with Dylan Dennis on June 13th. And honestly, whether you love him or hate him, that part is hard to question. Some guys disappear after a loss. Khamzat is already back moving. That doesn't erase what happened at UFC 328, but it does tell you he's not planning on sitting around feeling sorry for himself. Now another fun clip making the rounds came from Josh Hookett, who got into a crazy sparring session with his younger brother. And this was not one of those light, playful rounds either. It got intense fast. You could tell that whatever runs through that family, it definitely includes violence. It was one of those clips where you start watching thinking it's going to be technical, and then suddenly it looks like two guys genuinely trying to prove a point. Now, speaking of people being humbled, Larry Wheels found out the hard way that pure size means absolutely nothing if you don't know what you're doing in MMA. Larry, who's around 270 pounds and one of the strongest guys you'll ever see, grappled with a few lightweight MMA fighters and got completely worked. And afterward, he straight up admitted it. He said his aura was done, said he was about to cry, said he got embarrassed, and honestly, that's why those clips always go viral, because every so often people outside the sport convinced themselves that raw strength can beat skill, and MMA keeps teaching the same lesson over and over again. There are levels to this. Now, Rampage Jackson also made some noise by going after Ronda Rousey. He said he's never really been a fan of hers because, in his view, she comes off too arrogant, and he also brought up rumors about her not being nice to staff behind the scenes. His point was that there's a difference between confidence and crossing the line into being overly full of yourself. That by itself would have been enough drama, except Ronda then fired right back in a completely different direction. At a press conference, she responded to criticism from Khamzat Chimaev and went off on him hard. She said she owes Dana White and the Fertitas a lot, but she doesn't owe the current UFC under TKO anything. Then she took a shot at Khamzat and basically said people care more about her fight than his because fans don't care about what she called his wrestle fests. So yeah, Ronda did not exactly hold back. She also kept the tension going with Kayla Harrison, but the bigger headline there is simple. Ronda versus Khamzat is now somehow a thing, at least verbally. And finally, just to circle back to the White House card for a second, all of this extra noise around Gane, Pereira, and the rest of that event only keeps making it feel bigger, because now it's not just about who wins and loses, it's about controversy-style pressure and how all these personalities are carrying themselves heading into it. So right now you've got Ciryl Gane defending his approach to eye pokes, Michael Morales revealing absurd welterweight size, Francis Ngannou saying ego, not money, ended things with the UFC, Sean Strickland thanking fans after the title win, Brendan Schaub explaining why Sean is so relatable, Khamzat already back on the road days after losing, Larry Wheels getting humbled by lightweight MMA fighters, Rampage taking shots at Ronda, and Ronda unloading on Khamzat at the press conference. That's a loaded stretch of MMA news. Let me know in the comments what stood out most to you. Do you think Ciryl Gane should actually change the way he fights to avoid eye pokes? And who do you think is more in the right here, Francis Ngannou or the UFC? And if you want more straight to the point MMA news, make sure you subscribe. I'll catch you in the next one.